Kathy Engelbert and the WNBA, well, they have effed around, and now they're about to find out. The WNBA All-Star Game is, of course, in Indianapolis, the home of the Indiana Fever, the home of Caitlin Clark. And now it looks like Caitlin Clark, most likely, I can't imagine that Caitlin Clark will be participating in the three-point contest.
The WNBA just hit the self-destruct button. We're not talking about a bad call or a tough loss. We're talking about the moment the league's golden goose, the single player carrying its future on her shoulders, finally shattered in front of the entire world. This wasn't a sudden crack, it was the
walks there to the stanchion, obvious frustration.
The image of Caitlin Clark emotionally broken and physically restrained on the sidelines will haunt the league for years. It wasn't just a sign of frustration from a tough game. It was the terrifying sound of a ticking time bomb, one the league was warned about for months, finally detonating. And now Commissioner Kathy Engelbert is...
And immediately grabs the inside of that right leg.
The breaking point was a horrifying spectacle to behold. After a play, Clark turned on referee Michael Price, and her trademark composure, usually so steady and professional, completely evaporated into pure rage. She was reportedly screaming, her voice cutting through the arena noise, in a display of fury rarely seen from any star athlete.
Brother Colin Clark posted on social media, "Make no mistake, this is on the reffing," before quickly deleting the tweet. When family members start publicly calling out your league's incompetence, you know you've reached rock bottom.
But in terms of the comments, in terms of the way the commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, who I've known and I like, the way she has trouble talking about Caitlin Clark, or if she's asked about Caitlin, then she will say, well, Caitlin and Angel. Well, she wasn't asked about Angel, she was asked about Caitlin. This incredible inability to deal with the facts and to state the obvious. It is astounding to me how Kathy Engelbert doesn't come out after the Marina Mabry hit and say, that's unacceptable, the refs got it wrong. Okay, should have been kicked out then, you weren't, but now I'm gonna kick you out, you're suspended for another game or two. That's just unacceptable behavior for someone who's so important to the league or to any player, right? Mm-hmm. They can't do that. They seem paralyzed. But it does make you wonder, me as a human being, what is going on and why is it still so bad and just so opposite of what any...
This wasn't just a player arguing a call, it was a complete loss of control. The situation escalated so quickly that her own assistant coach, Brienne January, had to physically hold her back, restraining her from confronting the official. When a player needs to be physically stopped, it signals a problem that goes far beyond the court.
It looked like Caitlin Clark looked like she got a little hurt towards the end there. Is there any update on her injury?
No update. Just felt a little something in her groin, so we'll get it evaluated and see what happens from there.
Yeah, just kind of to follow up on that, looked like she was kind of grabbing at her right groin area. Is that the concern?
Yeah, if that's the one she was grabbing at, I don't know which one it was, but...
The raw emotion on display was the culmination of a season-long ordeal. This was a complete emotional breakdown from an athlete who had been pushed past her absolute limit. The face of the league having a public meltdown directed at the very officials meant to ensure fair play exposed a deep, systemic rot that had been festering for months.
Crying on the court to be circulated around, but she walks down to the end of the court. You can tell that she's in pain. You can tell that there's something wrong. She goes to the, what's it called, like stanchion or whatever, the thing that holds up the basketball hoop on the other end. She hits her head on it. She is fighting back tears and she walks straight over to the bench. Now, when she goes over to the bench, she starts crying, and I've honestly never seen Caitlin Clark cry on the court except when she lost the national championship game. She keeps it together no matter what is happening, but you could just tell that something happened on that play. And it was either the pain of it, it was either like, here we go again, it was frustration. I'm not sure exactly exactly. We probably won't get many details about the injury, but it was honestly just so heartbreaking.
That emotional explosion was ignited by a moment of sharp physical pain. Just seconds before the confrontation, with only 39 seconds left in the game, Clark made a simple pass and immediately grabbed her right groin. It was a non-contact aggravation of an injury that has already plagued her. A painful reminder of her body's. This marked her 4th injury in just 3 months. 4 distinct injuries in a 12-week span isn't just bad luck, and it certainly isn't normal wear and tear for a professional athlete in her prime. It's what happens when you're systematically targeted night after night without any form of protection from the league itself. The medical reality behind this specific injury makes the league's negligence even more shocking. Groin strains are an athlete's nightmare. They are notoriously slow to heal, incredibly easy to re-injure, and directly impact every single movement required for basketball: running, cutting, jumping, and defending. A full recovery requires rest, but how can an injury be properly managed when the player is getting beat up in every single game? Each illegal hit, each off-ball shove, and each cheap shot doesn't just risk a new injury, it actively prevents the old one from healing. The WNBA's inaction has created a vicious cycle that could threaten her entire career. This was a disaster that was not only predictable, it was practically announced. From the moment she stepped onto a WNBA court, a target was placed squarely on her back. We all saw the flagrant foul from Kennedy Carter, a blindside hip check away from the ball that was pure malice, not basketball. That was the first major warning shot. The pattern of harassment continued, becoming more blatant with each game. We saw veteran Marina Mabrey knock her to the ground with a cheap shot that sent a clear message. We saw her get poked directly in the eye and act with no basketball purpose. These weren't isolated incidents, they were the difference between aggressive basketball and what Clark has faced is night and day. Physical play involves hard screens and tough defense. What we're seeing is targeted harassment designed to injure and intimidate, often happening away from the ball where officials are less likely to see it or more willing to ignore it. At the center of this storm of incompetence and institutional failure stands one person, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. Her leadership throughout this escalating crisis has been a masterclass in denial. She had the power to stop this, to protect her league's most valuable asset, but she actively chose not to. Her infamous public statement in response to the growing concerns will define her legacy. When pressed on the clear targeting of Clark, she offered a stunningly dismissive excuse. It's a physical game. With those 4 words, she invalidated the concerns. That wasn't a statement of leadership, it was an act of pure gaslighting. Engelbert tried to frame the issue as Clark simply not being tough enough to handle the pros, rather than admitting the league had a serious officiating and player conduct problem. She put the blame on the victim. A competent commissioner would have acted decisively months ago. They would have issued fines and suspensions for dirty plays. They would have held meetings with officials to clarify the rules of engagement and sent a clear public message that protecting star players is essential for the league's growth. Engelbert did the exact opposite. Because the league's leadership remained silent, the frustration boiled over to those closest to her. Her own brother, Colin Clark, couldn't take it anymore. In a moment of raw anger, he posted a message on social media that sent shockwaves through the sport. He quickly deleted the tweet, but the damage was done and the message was out. The family of the WNBA's biggest star was publicly calling out the league's incompetence. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about a family watching a loved one get systematically broken down while the people in charge did nothing. The warnings had been there from the very beginning. Clark's own father had tried to warn the league about the officiating situation during a preseason interview, but the commissioner and the league office completely ignored it. They were too arrogant or too naive to listen to the people who knew the situation best. The crisis of credibility extended far beyond the Clark family. Respected ESPN analyst Rebecca Lobo went viral for calling out the officiating, expressing her disgust at how referees were ignoring blatant fouls where Clark was being grabbed and hit. When your own broadcast partners are criticized, and the timing of this public implosion could not have been more catastrophic. The WNBA All-Star Game was scheduled to take place in Indianapolis, the home of the Indiana Fever, the home of Caitlin Clark. It was meant to be a coronation, a celebration of the Clark effect that had revitalized the entire league. Now, that entire weekend was in jeopardy. Tickets sold out in record time and merchandise was flying off the shelves, all because of one player. The league was facing the nightmare scenario where its main attraction might not even be able to play in its most important promotional event of the year, all due to its own negligence. But the All-Star Game is just the tip of a massive financial iceberg. The WNBA is in the middle of negotiating a new media rights deal, reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Network executives aren't paying that kind of money to watch a league without its central superstar. They are paying for Caitlin Clark. Those television executives are now watching the league actively allow its primary investment to be systematically destroyed. You can be certain that frantic calls are being made to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver demanding answers. The WNBA is a subsidiary league, and ultimately this DMN mess lands on his desk. The entire fiasco was perfectly encapsulated in one heartbreaking image from the sidelines. Clark, in utter frustration, banging her head against the padded basketball stanchion. That is not the behavior of someone just having a bad game. That is the action of someone who has been pushed to an emotional and physical breaking point with no support in sight. What we're witnessing is a perfect storm, a physically and emotionally broken star, a marquee event on the verge of collapse, and a 9-figure financial future hanging in the balance, all because of a stunning failure of leadership. The question is no longer if the league has a problem, but whether this public implosion is the final wake-up call it needed, or the fatal mistake that will haunt the WNBA for years to come.